you're going to have to pay a price. You're going to have to pay a pretty hefty price, and there's no sugarcoating it. If you are effective, and I assume you want to be, I assume you want to make a difference, and some people actually don't want to make a difference. They just want to kind of, a lot of these people in journalism school, I don't know what their goals are. It would be fascinating to ask. Maybe I should, this next video I should do, I should go to journalism schools and ask journalism students what their goals are. Is it to make money? Is it to be famous? We don't know. But if you want to be effective, there's a couple things you need to understand. There's not a lot of profit in social change. There's a lot of profit in rhetoric, and there's a lot of profit in being a pundit. There's not a lot of profit in actually changing things. Number two, you're going to pay a price, and the question is, are you willing to pay it? This book, I wrote this book, I'm young, I'm in my 20s. People say, why did you write a book in your 20s about what you've been through? Because it was a story that needed to be told. I mean, I've had federal agents, let me give you an understanding of the price I've paid. I've had federal agents harass my family. Every month for the last 3 years, up until May 26, 2013, every month I had to submit cash inflow and outflow statements to the federal government. They asked me why I was spending money to get my car repaired. I had to submit receipts to them. I've had 200 retractions printed in newspapers across the country, which any journalist would agree that's pretty extraordinary and should raise some eyebrows. And most importantly, as all this was happening, there were people that, kind of lost hope. And I think that people who are aspiring to do this, I think the most important thing, it's an age-old thing, but just don't stop doing what you're doing. Keep going. And it's in the moments when you're just about to give up that, I had to train people by proxy. I had to train people over Skype. I couldn't even travel. And I was doing my journalism. So you really just have to keep going and do what you can with what you have.
You may just have answered this question, but I'll ask, what's the most important thing you've learned?
The most important thing. There's 39 lessons in the book. I didn't realize, there's one scene in the book where I meet Andrew Breitbart. And it's a cliche. You say the media is biased. It sounds like a cliche. And I was talking to Andrew, and there's a little conversation, and he's, where do I go with these tapes? And Andrew says, you should bring them to me, and we should go to these people. I said, why not go to the local papers? Make it a local story, have it. And Andrew says to me, James, you don't understand. I said, what? Go to the Baltimore Sun, have it pick up tracks from there. He said, no. The Baltimore Sun is they are a political party. So I know they're biased. He said, James, you don't understand. It's not bias. It's news suppression. They are engaged in news suppression. And you see it everywhere around you these days. And I don't understand why people aren't more outraged by it. They are trying to shut down information from getting out to people. And that's the number one lesson I have learned, is they just want to silence people. And I think that people on the left and the right together we need to come to a consensus on this point. I think we can come to an agreement on this point. If they oppose the First Amendment, they lose. So if we frame it that way, if we explain to people, do you support my right to express myself? Do you support information? And if they say no, I think we can defeat them. I think we have a win in our corner. So this book is starting to kind of bring people together a little bit. Even if they don't like the things that I've exposed, they like the organizations I've exposed, they still are defending our right to do it.
You started to get some grudging respect from some of those who had criticized you earlier. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it actually it was this Moran story, and actually most recently the Obama phone story. Actually, there's another story, that gun story I said about the hypocrisy. We had Eric Wimble at the Washington Post say, no accountability-minded journalists can resist watching these videos, these Project Veritas videos, because they're exposing hypocrisy. It's the last thing you cannot be in our civilization, is a hypocrite. We also got praise from unusual corners. We had Dave Weigel at Slate. Slate is not necessarily the most the friendliest of newspapers, but they said that we had more of an impact on the election last year than any other journalist because of our voter fraud work, showing the ballots being offered out in the names of the dead, inspired a couple states to change their laws.
So do you think you've reached a turning point where the mainstream, if they're not necessarily respecting you, they're starting to take you seriously? And perhaps
It's hard.
as well.
It's hard to really, make a verdict on that. The most important thing is that we keep doing the work that we're doing, and we keep our heads down and really keep releasing good stories. We have 5 investigations right now. We're excited to release the next one. So it's really hard to make a judgment about what their game plan is. Although their MO seems to be to ignore us. One of the Veritas rules is actually the invert the Gandhi principle, where they first ignore you, then they start fighting you. In fact, what they do is they try to kill stories in the womb. And then if they are unable to kill the story and it breaks out of the womb, so to speak, and catches fire and gets news traction, they kind of just have to ignore it. So they're sort of lying in wait for me to make a mistake. They're lying in wait, and if and when another story is on the front page of the New York Times, I'll frankly be fascinated to see what they do.
They can't ignore the content.
They can't ignore the results. They can ignore content. But when someone resigns, they fired all these workers 2 weeks ago, and that's going to happen again. They keep on firing people. I mean, what are they going to say to that? Not much.
Breakthrough, the new book by James O'Keefe, out June 18th. Pre-order it today at breakthroughthemedia.com.